It's just gone 1 minute past 8. It's a Thursday morning. Peter Swampy-Marsh is here in the studio. Well, I guess that means one thing. It's Sports Fever time.
Good morning, Matty. And what a big week of sport. It's been a real massive feast we've had of weeknights to the last couple of weeks with Le Tour and the Ashes. And we've had some absolute giants of the sporting world in Liverpool and Man United out here as well.
It's all been happening, but I must firstly give you a big congratulations, Swamp. I went back and listened to the tapes last week
I thought
to
you'd have
remember.
it queued up, to be honest.
Yeah, well,
I'm disappointed.
Joey wasn't here this morning. I was going to get Joey to do it, our technical man, but he wasn't here. Phil Mickelson, you've thrown it out. You named about 18 players, but you did get it right. No,
I think I named two. I think
yeah.
I said Big Ernie could be a shot, and if you're not on Big Ernie, Phil Mickelson have been some great
very
form,
well.
so.
You've got a fantastic record tipping in the majors here. I thought my Adam Scott tip was going to sneak through.
He was very close. But
he does no good for your sleep, Scotty. If he's going to win easy. Like, it's just too much effort to stay up and then get beat. It's very frustrating.
It's Phil Mickelson played some of and he called it himself after the victory, the best golf he'd ever played in his career to win that tournament. And Scotty probably played some great golf, but not the best golf for his career. So good to see that the game there, and it really augurs well for later in the year for Scott if he is playing that well and is able to compete eventually. His time will come, but just a tremendous round from Phil Mickelson to take out the Open there. A wonderful event, one of my favourite sporting events as well. I think the oldest tournament in the world it holds the crown for, so big things over in the old art there.
I'll tell you what, not long until Jason Day wins one either. I know he's just always around the mark. He's just going to put the four rounds together sooner rather than later, I think.
We've only got to look at Phil Mickelson's career to know that, if Jason Day doesn't pick up majors in these first 5-10 years of his career, that things are going to open up for him. So long the bridesmaid to Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson, but the last couple of years have really opened up for him. We saw him claim the Masters in 2009. 2011. And then, of course, pick up the Open here. So a real sort of late surge in his career. He's certainly not on the way out, but he was certainly in the later part of his career for Mickelson. So plenty of time for Jason Day. But on the giants of Liverpool and Manchester United coming here, some of the figures that we've seen during the week have absolutely astounded me. I think we had 95,000 people pack into the MCG last night, 83,000 people in the SCG at the weekend, and 20,000 people go and watch Liverpool train on a Tuesday night. It's absolutely mind-boggling stuff when you're starting to compare any kind of sport that we play here. It's and what is, I suppose, neither of us are great football fans or passionate football fans, but it's great for me to see a sporting event get that much traction, that much attention, and really feel it when we get these big teams here. One very interesting thing surrounding it last night was Andrew Bogut, one of the absolute best people to follow on Twitter if you're a sports fan, said those crowds should be enough and should prove that Australia can bring a sporting crowd together enough to get an NBA game on our shores.
Yeah, so, hopefully that's not too far away, really.
Well, you'd think, this is, as much of these games are about getting the players fit and having a pre-season game, there is much about spreading the global brand of Manchester United or Liverpool. So you think someone like the Lakers or the Bulls who have a real global focus wouldn't be too long before they start to looking at Australia as a market.
The baseball sold out their two games in Sydney as well next, and they weren't the global brands, and you put basketball ahead of baseball in terms of popularity in Australia.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, along the grapevine, those baseball tickets I heard were not at the cheap end of the spectrum and still managed to go in a flash. So wonderful to see those kind of sports getting attention. But unfortunately, on the flip side of that coin, Matty, not good news for NRL crowds coming out during the week. Some real struggles there, and probably something that the NRL is going to have to address sooner rather than later with Origin and just how much it does detract away from the regular competition. I think average attendance is down to about 10,000 people, which is not the best.
I don't know. Yeah, no, it's not good. And I don't know if there's an answer. Is it ticket prices week in, week out? I don't know. So I honestly don't know. We're season members there at the Broncos, and the Broncos have never had real issues with crowd numbers. Will be interesting to see how they go next year after obviously an ordinary year, and I know the Broncos themselves haven't written off this year, but yeah, Brisbane has always been a sing when you're winning town, so interesting. We might talk a bit later about it in the show, but quick song, we'll be back to talk some Dolphins. 8 minutes past 8 here on 101.5. You listen to Sports Fever with Matthew and Peter Swampy Marsh. Time now to talk some Redcliffe Dolphins news ahead of some home games on Sunday. And joining us on the line, very special guest. He's a Dolphins legend. He's now part of the coaching staff there at the Fins. We're talking about, of course, Adam Mogg. Good morning, Adam.
Morning, Matthew. Peter, how are you?
Yeah, we're really good this morning, mates, and of course always good when there's a couple of Dolphins home games coming up this weekend. But before we get to the clashes that are about to happen, we might look back on the last couple of weeks for the Fins. A couple of scratchy wins for the Intrust Super Cup side, Adam, but wins nonetheless, and 4 very important points on the competition ladder for the boys.
Yeah, look, it'd be safe to say if we didn't scratch out those wins, we'd be no chance of making the semis. So, like you said, not a great performance. But when confidence is low, I think it's important to get a couple of wins under our belt and hopefully get some confidence out of it. So, and this week will be no different. If we don't win this week, we'll be struggling to make the semis.
A player that seems to have made a real difference to the side, Moggy, is a young fellow that's come back from the Broncos 20 to play, Broncos under 20s to play in the halves. Cameron Cullen, he's added a real spark and attack to that side, hasn't he?
Yes, mate. I've got a big rap on the kid. I haven't seen a lot of him, I must be honest. But look, we lost Luke Cable obviously to Penrith this year, and Zach Strass has been out, who I've got an enormous rap on, but. So we've been heavily hit in the halves, but mate, if they were all available, it'd be hard to leave Cameron Cullen out. I see him as a real good prospect for the future. He's a good kid with plenty of talent. So we'll have Zach Strasser back in the next week or two, hopefully. So John will have some headaches as far as decisions go in the halves.
It's a problem, as they say, you'd like to have Moggy. One other player that's come back into the side and really like nothing has changed has been Marty Hatfield coming back from France and slotting back into the centres there. Really looks like he's just back at home in Finn's colours.
Mate, yeah, he's been terrific. We were wondering what sort of shape he'd come back in. Obviously, the National Cup in France is well below Queensland Cup level, so... mate, he's done a fantastic job, and I'm sure he's one of the first guys picked every week. He's just a really good team player and a really good performer. So boys love playing with him as well. So yeah, mate.
Plenty's been said about Petro's year this year, and he's created a lot of exposure for the Dolphins, but he just keeps turning up each week and is close to the Dolphins' best. He's been enormous for the club this year, hasn't he, Petro Civoniceva?
Oh, mate, he's been our best by far. It's not rocket science to work it out. He's just been enormous. Mate, he's our best performer in our top 2 every single week. So, yeah, mate, he's just an ultimate professional, and I don't think we need to sort of say too much more other than it's Petro Civoniceva, and we've come to expect that over the last 2 decades.
Moggy, the Intrust Super Cup boys, as you said, fighting to hold that spot or to keep the semi-chances alive. But at the other end of the club, the Colts, after winning the grand final last year, have just gone from strength to strength, sitting on top of the table, and a thrilling win last week, and really promising signs for the future of the club with so many of these young players really showing some fantastic stuff.
Yeah, mate, and look, I've got to give Lammy a rap there, the coach. I mean, when you look at the Colts sort of the first couple of performances of the year, you knew it was going to be a work in progress. So they've come together really well as a team, and I think he's done a good job. And look, the boys are heading in the right direction, and I think the key for them will be just to keep improving. And I'm sure they've got a really good chance of featuring on grand final day.
A team that, of course, been a little bit hit and miss, full of talent though, is the Fogs Cup team. Went down in a close one to Ipswich. I'm sure Grant Fluggy would have gave the team a fair dinkum rev up as he can. They'd be looking to turn things around, obviously, on the weekend. Again, the side on paper, a fantastic looking side with a lot of first grade experience in the team.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of other Queensland Cup teams that would like to cut their teeth into our reserve grade side. So, look, Mickey Roberts he's sort of come into his own the last few weeks. I watched him play a couple of weeks ago, and he was great at home. He's just a natural leader for that team. So, yeah, they had a bit of up and down at the start of the season, but to Fluggy's defence, we've had a few injuries and guys leave, and it's not easy coaching. When your team's chopping and changing from week to week, we get guys up and down from the Broncos, so he's sort of, late in the week he gets told who's playing. So, but they're coming together now, and they've been working really hard at it, so I'm sure that Fluggy will have them up for this week's game.
All three grades taking on South at Dolphin Oval from 11:30 with the Colts this weekend. Moggy, especially in the Intrust Super Cup sides, South sort of have proved a few upsets across the board this year, but a few familiar faces for the Dolphin crowd in that South side for the Intrust Super Cup.
When you look at the team, there's probably half a dozen. I'm not sure if they'll all play this week for South, but there's probably half a dozen that were contracted to Redcliffe over the last 12 months that are playing for South this week. So the one-eyed Dolphin fan might get a bit confused on who to keep their eye on this week. So. But yeah, look, it's a danger game for us. South have been, they've upset a few this year, and they'll come over here cock a hoot and fired up to get a win. So if we're not close to our best, we'll kiss that 2 points goodbye, and we'll be chasing our tail for the rest of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. But it'll be a huge day out there at Dolphin Oval. 3 big grades. 11:30 it all kicks off with the Colts. Then 1:15 Fog Cup, and the main game, the Intrust Super Cup, at 3 p.m. Sure to be a huge day out at Dolphin Oval. Hoping we can get a big crowd there to get the boys home in 3 grades. Moggy, just wanted to touch on quickly before we let you go. It was a week ago that Queensland, won the 8th. Successive series. Mate, it seems like a long time ago. We were all so proud seeing you make your debut. You never would have imagined that Queensland have never lost a series since, mate, since you helped them win one back in 2006.
It's quite scary, isn't it, to think that, that Mal has just done such a terrific job, and, 8 years later we're still undefeated, and I can't see it getting any shorter than 9. I haven't looked 2 years ahead, but I don't like New South Wales' chances of playing 2 games at Suncorp next year because they just can't aim up at Suncorp. So we could probably pick our Queensland residents team and beat New South Wales at Suncorp next year and make it 9 series in a row. But yeah, mate, it's just Mel's done a fantastic job, and obviously there's a catalyst of a very good bunch of leaders that have come through that sort of 8 years, and mate, it's just an absolute credit to Mel and his staff.
It certainly is, and certainly you've got me excited already for next year, Moggy. 9 is looking fine. Sounds good, mate. We'll see you out at Dolphin Oval on Sunday, hoping for 3 big victories from the Dolphins across all 3 grades. Thanks for your time this morning, Adam Mogg.
Thank you, Matthew, and I'm sure it'll be a great day out at Dolphin Oval. It'll be a fiery clash, obviously, with ex-Redcliffe players turning up to play back at their old teammates. So it'll be plenty of fire in the belly, and both teams need a win to stay alive.
Sounds good to me. Thanks, Moggy.
Thanks, mate.
Cheers, mate. Adam Mogg there, a real Dolphins legend, a modern-day legend, I guess we can say, Swampy.
Oh, absolutely. That's one of my enduring Origin memories. Is that I can see that still picture of Moggy after he dived over on the try line in 2006. It's just one of the many wonderful tales this Queensland side has written, over its 8-year dominance. And I think the next year we've got the 2 home games at Suncorp, Matty, but the year after is a game in Melbourne, where you'd think is Queensland's sort of unofficial home with Slater and Cronk and Smith there, and I don't think New South Wales has a fantastic record down in Melbourne at all. So you could almost say that they're sort of behind the 8 ball, hopefully for 10. So a huge couple of years coming up. Have you got a slogan for 10 yet? 9 is fine. It's good. I'll put you on the spot.
Oh no, 10 would be easy to come up with a bit of notice.
Oh look, I've not got something, but 9 is fine. Rolls off the tongue very nicely for the moment.
something about big fat hens or something along those lines. Probably not the greatest slogan, but you could say it's the working title.
Is that what Mal gets when he hits 10 series in a row?
Chicken George gets the big fat hen. Yeah, no, it works in well. Just quickly on Moggy again. One of my favourite Finns players of all time. Moggy, he always just gave 100% every time he played for the Finns, and he's great. For any player out there that, in that Queensland Cup level, and it's a great achievement to play Queensland Cup because it's a great quality competition. But Moggy played, I think it was 4 or 5, maybe 6 seasons with the Finns. Was often their best, but then went off to Parramatta. Had a solid season for Parramatta, then off to Canberra. And then was a bolter for Queensland. Like, it just shows that I think he was 24, 25 by the time he got his crack at NRL, and then made every post a winner. And you look back on Adam Mogg's career, premierships for Redcliffe. I think he just fell short of 100 NRL games, and then played overseas successfully as well. So a great career, and just shows that you don't always have to take that obvious pathway. A lot of footballers think if they haven't made it, by 1920 their career is over. Well, Adam Mogg throws that theory out the window.
Yeah.
And, he's one of the best, and it's great to see him back involved with the Dolphins after a stint at the Sunny Coast Club as well. But great to see him around Dolphin Oval. On
the Dolphins, Matty, it's no secret we are both massive fans of the Finns here, and geez, we're in for a roller coaster till the end of the season, aren't we? This is every game is must win. There's no second chances from here, and the last 2 weeks have been close, have been roller coasters, just 2 points for the Finns, but they're getting some confidence, and they're looking more like the team we saw take the part at the start of the year. Then they had that middle stretch where they just couldn't find a way to win and get over the line. So it's going to be a long end to the season and a few frayed nerves, I dare say. But look, the equation is simple. They just have to keep winning, and the rest will take care of them. So it's going to be a huge game against South this weekend with all those familiar faces in the Magpies team. So should be a huge clash, lots of fire, and all kicks off at 3 p.m. at Dolphin Oval.
The thing about the Finns, I know they've made it tough for themselves, having to win every game, but the thing about it, and we see it often in rugby league, is come finals time, teams that have this roll on coming into the finals are very hard to beat, whether they're the bottom end of a top 5 or be the top 8 in the NRL. The teams with momentum in recent years are the teams that are most hardest to beat.
Looking outside of the Queensland Cup, remember Parramatta's extraordinary run, and that's momentum, nothing else. So, look, if the Finns are able to make the 5, they're a huge chance, and there won't be any other team in that 5 that will want to play them. If they've got the momentum, they can string 5, 6, 7 wins together and come roaring home with some form into these finals. You'd back them against any team in there. There'd be some very tough matches.
There'd be if the Dolphins. I'll tell you now. I'll guarantee now. There's every Queensland Cup team are hoping that the Dolphins miss the 5. They are the team they won't want to play, particularly with momentum. And then throw in the experience of Petro Civoniceva coming into a finals campaign. Look, I know we are wishing and hoping, but yeah, if they continue to grit out wins and just keep banking those 2 points and sneaking up the ladder, a few results go their way, they're back in the 5 on the weekend. So, and the thing about the Dolphins too, and I didn't mention with Moggy, is that they've got the 2 best front rowers in the comp.
Absolutely.
Sliney and Civoniceva by far, and that alone will keep you in most games. That'll go a long way to winning most. They just need that little bit more effort not effort, but a little bit more execution from their backs. And from what I've seen the last couple of weeks, Cullen certainly is providing that.
And fair point to the backs there. Has been a lot of chopping and changing in the halves through some outside forces this season that has made really, I suppose, building any combinations there really difficult. So hopefully with some steady combinations there with Cullen and when Strasser comes back, if they can string 4 or 5 games together, that pair, to incredibly exciting young halves playing behind two of the best front rowers in the Queensland Cup, with some of the most exciting backline players in the Queensland Cup, with Joe Bond there at fullback. You can forget about what's gone past in this season. That they will be a threat, but it's a long way to go there, Matty. And look, I'm looking forward to the run. It's going to be a few heart stoppers and a few frayed nerves, but I'm really looking forward to the back end of this season.
A complete contrast to what we've seen last year, front running and putting, knocking all before them. So it didn't work last year. Maybe if we sneak up on them, Swamp, is maybe the way to attack it. And the other thing I just mentioned with these teams getting rolling, when you're the benchmark team all year, every other team's working out how to beat you. So sometimes when you aren't going great, the coaches don't focus so much on the videos of your team. But when you're the benchmark team like Dolphins, every coach last year was trying to work out how to beat the Dolphins. So look, just throwing it out there, maybe a sneaky little approach. Maybe
we are wishful thinking. We're not going to pull a Michael Voss and shoot down any finals hopes. It's ridiculous because they're not. I think the Dolphins, I think it's ninth, but the way that the competition has played out this season, they've got a very good for and against the Dolphins, which is probably their biggest chip that they've got at the moment. I think there's a couple other teams about 3 teams on even points, and they've got far worse for and against records than the Dolphins do. So if the Dolphins can string together 2 or 3 wins and leapfrog them, they can find themselves in 5th spot very, very quickly. So look, it's going to be fascinating to watch this play out.
Yeah, no, certainly will be, Swamp, and I encourage everyone to get out there on Sunday and see some great rugby league action. Time now for a quick song. 29 minutes to 9 here on SportsFeva with Matthew and Swampy. Time now to talk some AFL, and joining us on the line, one of our favourites on the show, good friend of the show from AFL.com, Mike Whiting. Good morning to you.
Hey, Matty, how you going?
Yeah, we're really good here this morning, mate. Now, a couple of very, very interesting weeks just been for our 2 Queensland clubs in the AFL, the Suns and the Lions, and a couple of very interesting weeks coming up. Before we get to those, mate, we might look back to a couple of very big wins for both clubs, and probably start with none bigger than the Suns with a tremendous effort to get over Collingwood last weekend.
It's been a good couple of weeks for Queensland footy, hasn't it?
Great couple of weeks.
Yeah, last weekend was fantastic result for the Suns. Obviously, their best win in their short history, knocking off Collingwood, the biggest club in the competition. And geez, they deserved it too. They played terrific footy all over the ground. I mean, they were probably a fraction off the pace in the first quarter, and Collingwood let them off the hook with a bit of inaccurate kicking. But after quarter time, I really thought Gold Coast deserved their win. Probably could have won one more in the end, but I guess you take any win you can, and we really saw their future. Their midfield was fantastic. They took on the likes of Swan, Penn, Beams. Luke Ball took them on head-to-head and got the chocolates.
It's impossible to talk about that win without talking about the form of one G. Ablett, and he's a player that you say you run out of adjectives to describe him, but he just keeps finding another level, doesn't he?
Oh, he does. He's unbelievable. You can't find words to describe him. I just keep thinking how, as a journo, how lucky I am to get to see him play every second weekend up close, and he just takes your breath away every time you watch him play. Just when you think you've seen everything, he takes it up another gear. And not only does he get a lot of the ball, it's what he does with it and when he does it. When the game's on the line, like it was last week in that 4th quarter, and rove the ball in the forward 50, beats a couple of guys and snaps a goal just to basically seal the match. I mean, that's real leadership, and that's probably something that he's taken to another level since he got to the Gold Coast. And everyone knew how great he was at Geelong. He had to come up here and lead a bunch of kids, basically, and he's put them on his shoulders, and he's done it.
Interesting to see during the week. I think he's shortened to be the shortest price favourite for the Brownlow now ever, given that form on the weekend. Is a Brownlow medal for Gary Ablett playing for the Gold Coast vindication for his decision?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think it's been vindicated anyway. I mean, he achieved everything he could have achieved at Geelong, and he obviously the financial lure was pretty enticing. No one would have knocked him for coming up for that reason alone, but he's done so much more than that. He didn't just come up here and sit on his laurels and get his fat paycheck every week. He's really led this young team. Like he came into a list that had between 30 and 40 teenagers when he got up here. Gary was 8, 9 and 10 years older than most of them. He's just his leadership on the field, on the training track particularly. A lot of the guys that you speak to down the Gold Coast, a lot of those young guys particularly, one of the first things they mention about him is his work ethic on the track and how they want to emulate what he does. So just for that alone, it's showing the value of him coming to the Suns as a new startup club.
Driving further up the M1, the Lions have had a couple of very good wins. I think three back-to-back now. It was their first back-to-back wins, getting the win over North Melbourne. A wonderful game there, and one that could really define their season. Yeah, they turned it around, haven't they? It was all sort of doom and gloom, probably rightfully so. About 10 weeks ago, they had a poor start of the season. They were staring down the barrel of a horrendous run of 7 or 8 matches that they played all the finalists from last year, but snuck a couple of wins in that lot, and like you said there, 3 wins in a row now, and that one against North Melbourne was terrific. Another big fourth quarter comeback, and in front of a good home crowd. I think that was a week after beating the Suns, so I guess the Lions got a bit of momentum, haven't they? A bit of belief, and they've finally beaten a couple of teams around them on the ladder, which they haven't been able to do for the past couple of seasons. They've had a couple of huge upsets against more fancy teams, but when they've played the teams around them, like the North Melbourne, they've really capitulated. But that win a couple of weeks ago was just terrific, and they went up and got the job done against Melbourne last week, and now they've got another huge match this weekend, probably the biggest in the Lions' last 4 seasons, I would have thought.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I was speaking to someone, a big Lions supporter, I think in recent weeks, coming off a couple of those huge upsets, in recent years we probably would have seen the Lions drop a game like the Melbourne game after a couple of big wins. Just that lack of consistency we've seen from the Lions over the last couple of years has been the killer blow. But could be a case come towards the finals that they're going to really rue that slow start after a great NAB Cup, that costly victory and they played some really ordinary football earlier in the year, didn't they? I think they might come back to haunt them. Yeah, I think you're right.
We thought that early on in the season. That first match against the Western Bulldogs is the one that everyone goes back to. And not only did they drop the match there and play horrendously, but since then a few of the players and staff around the club have admitted that put them on the back foot and that shell-shocked them quite a bit. Took them a few weeks to get over that first round result. So I think that might come back to bite them in the end, because they're 2 wins and a whole heap of percentage outside the top 8. So it's going to take a pretty miraculous finish to the season to sneak into the 8. But yeah, that first month or 6 weeks, they will rue that, no doubt about it. But they can only do what they can now, and they've turned things around in the past couple of weeks. But it's a huge test against Port Adelaide this weekend. I couldn't have been more impressed with their season so far. They were down the bottom, down and out last season, and a new coach and a new staff there at Port Adelaide this year, and they've turned it around, and they've been a terrific story this season.
The Lions look like they're going to have to do it without one, maybe 2 of their more experienced stars. We've seen Black and Brown out for the game last week. Who's back in the side this week, Mike, and who's likely to be out for this game?
Well, they're all sort of sitting on the fence at the moment. They've got their main training session this morning, so it sounds like Simon Black will miss, so that's another blow. But I guess the bonus there, if there is a bonus of missing Simon Black, is that they've done it a few times this season, and a lot of those other young midfielders have got plenty of experience now. Jonathan Brown ran a training yesterday, and he feels quite good about his chances, but he has to get through today's training session, so he's probably a 50-50 at this stage. If he doesn't play this week, he's a certainty to play St Kilda the following week. Brent Maloney looks all but in, and Mitch Golby looks all but in as well, but those guys just have to get through the main training today, so Blackie is the most doubtful one, and Brown is probably a 50-50 at the moment.
And further on the injury front, a player that has really emerged in recent weeks just to get a bit of attention, Pierce Hanley, of course, out for a couple of weeks. What have you made of his, I suppose, real purple patch of form that he's displayed over the last couple of weeks?
He's been unbelievable, Pierce Hanley. He's sort of flown under the radar a little bit in the last couple of seasons. He was 3rd in the Lions' best and fairest last year, which was a fair effort for a team that won 10 games, but he's taken his game to another level this year. He was killing it at the start of the season, and then he started getting a bit of attention from oppositions, and he got tagged a couple of times probably something he hadn't dealt with before, and struggled for a few weeks there, but he's really found his form again in the past couple of weeks. And the most amazing thing with Pearce is his foot skills. The guy didn't touch a footy until he was 17 or 18, and now he's arguably one of the best kicks at the lines, and probably one of the better kicks in the competition, particularly when he's on the run. Some of those goals he's kicked in the past couple of weeks, particularly that win against North Melbourne, was pretty amazing.
Oh, the kick against North Melbourne was one that you'd replay over and over again and just keep on watching, and it gets better. Looking quickly to the Suns for this weekend, a really interesting clash with Carlton. It was about this time last year and about this game that ended the coaching career of Brett Ratton at the Blues. The Suns, any chance of riding a fair bit of momentum from that Collingwood win and pinching one over Mick and the Blues?
Oh, I think they're a big chance. I looked at the odds earlier in the week, and Carlton were very heavily favoured by the bookmakers, and I can't really understand why. I think when the Suns have just come off a win against Collingwood, that's a very good form line. They've really taken they'll have minimal changes from that match. I think their midfield is as good as Carlton's and can match them there. And I think their defence is rock solid at the moment. They've got a pretty good chemistry down that back half, and I think the Suns are a massive chance. I'm picking them this week, and I'm surprised that the Blues are so heavily favoured.
Mike, it's always a pleasure to chat with you on the Fever. We love having you on, and going to be a couple of very interesting weeks for Queensland footy fans. Some big things hopefully brewing at both the clubs, and we'd love to have you back on as we get towards the further end of the season to see how it's all unfolded. Always a pleasure having you on, Mike. Thanks very much for your time.
Thanks, boys. Love coming on. Speak to you soon.
Cheers, Mike. Mike Whiting from afl.com.au. And a couple of weeks ago, if you would have said that how good are the Queensland AFL teams going, people would have laughed at you. But
had you know an institution, they would have, Matty. But I watched both Brisbane's win over North Melbourne and the Suns win over Collingwood, and just really, really exciting victories that we hadn't seen for a little while from both those sides. I suppose it's a bit unfair for the Lions, given their win over Geelong, that massive upset earlier in the season. But look, the Lions have got a really good draw. They've got St Kilda, and a big shout out to Andre Grimaud, the Saints. Unfortunately, they're not rolling well this season, the Saints. They've got the Western Bulldogs, and you'd think the Lions would be fairly keen to atone for that loss. They've got Richmond, which will be a big test, but the real kicker for the Lions, and it could come down to it, the last round they've got Geelong at Geelong, which is a mammoth task for any team, let alone one that is looking to get the points out of it to scrape into the eighth. So that could come down to it, and like you said, could the Lions look back on the season and rue those losses at the start of the year. But again, going to be a great ride to the end of the season for AFL fans as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a fan of sport in general, the Suns are becoming a great team, aren't they? You know, it's just a good young team. You can obviously G. Ablett's a big up, but
he's a big in.
The rest of the team is just they were just kids, and they're developing to a really good side. I think they're top 8 material next year for sure.
It's really interesting considering where the Suns are now to where GWS are. Obviously, GWS a year behind the Suns, but they are in all sorts of strife this season. GWS, probably the biggest thing is that no one's talking about them. No one's looking at where they're going as a club, and that's a real danger for a club that's only just launched in a really tough market. It's not favourable to them. The Gold Coast have continued to stay in, I suppose, the Queensland consciousness, if you will, the sporting consciousness, and they've kept improving. They've just kept chipping away. They've rewarded their fans who have stuck through, and they've asked them, we're a young team, we're not going to have a lot of wins, but stick with us and you'll start to see some results, and they've delivered on that. And that's probably the biggest thing for me for the Gold Coast. Is it was a tough year one, they had an okay year last year, they pinched a few wins, and this year they're flying along really well for a team that's only been in the competition as long as they have. And when at the start of the year they strung a few together, there were some people talking about a possible 8 for them. They've dropped a couple of games as they're going to, but I think you're dead on that they're a chance next year, Matty.
Yeah, no, for sure. They've got some, a couple of the most exciting young players coming through in the AFL. Think about GWS too. They lack, and I know trying their hardest to get Buddy Franklin to go. They need a name. They lack a name, and they lack a name to build someone around. They've probably missed the boat a little bit with that huge name, that headline name. And the other thing too is, while he's been out injured all this year, Carmichael Hunt for the Gold Coast Suns was a gamble that really paid off. He played the game really well. He created a lot of interest for leagueies like you and myself. Stopped to watch a Suns game that we probably wouldn't have previously to see how Carmichael Hunt went. Whereas the experiment with Izzy Folau was a disaster, absolute disaster for the AFL and the Giants in general. So just a few little things haven't gone the Giants' way, but yeah.
Interesting, just very quickly on Carmichael Hunt, a few whispers floating about the Broncos looking to bring him back, making an offer here or there. I think Hook Griffin in a fan chat said during the week he'd be interested in having some chats. I think Carmichael Hunt would be crazy to come back to the NRL, given how much success he's had in the AFL. He's proved himself and really made himself a home there in the AFL. If anything, we've seen he's up for a challenge. He was arguably, one of the better players going around the NRL when he made that leap to the AFL. But fortunately, the Broncos lost a bit of their lustre as a glamour club, and I couldn't see why he'd want to come back to a club that's in a bit of strife from a club that could be playing finals football in a couple of years' time.
Yeah, and
I say that as a Broncos fan.
Well, the Broncos have lost that, ever since they missed out on Inglis that time. That kind of attract star power has fallen, but don't write off B. Barber being in Broncos colours next year. If my mailman, who's normally very good, is right, Barber will play for the Broncos.
Those Barber rumours, they started in the middle of the year, didn't they? And then they cooled right down, and then they've just started to bubble up again now. And I think Ben Barber himself this morning tweeting some nasty words from some Bulldogs fans asking him to get out. So, look, take of that what you will, but I don't think all is right in the kennel with Barber and the Bulldogs.
This is a SportsFeva declaration. He will play for the Broncos in 2014.
Big call.
That's from the mailman.
The mailman?
Yep.
Is coming.
B. Barber will be there, and don't rule out in 2015
Cameron Smith.
No, his good friend Daly Cherry Evans to be 215. But that mailman's not confirming that one. He'll put his reputation on 2014 Ben Barber, but don't write off DCE in 215. Pity that didn't rhyme. 2 DCE.
Look, I'm going to keep this tape.
Yeah, record it. We'll get this on. The mailman's never been wrong.
Never.
Very.
Well, I like it. If that's the case, I like it a lot.
It's just, I can't control the mailman. He's his own man, but we'll see how he goes.
He always delivers.
Play a word from our sponsor. 9 minutes to 9 here on SportsFeva with Matthew and Peter Swampy Marsh. Time now to talk some Sunshine Coast and Gympie Rugby League. And joining us on the line now is the coach of the Caboolture Snakes, Chook Tomlinson. Good morning to you.
Morning.
Chook, it's you've got a couple of very, very big scalps in the Caboolture Snakes' possession over the last couple of weeks. We talked a couple of weeks ago about the fantastic win over the Kawana Dolphins, the huge win there. And look, the boys have done it again this weekend. A big win over local rivals, the Bribie Island Seagulls, at the Snake Pit on Saturday night, 28-16 in favour of the Snakes. I imagine you're a pretty happy coach this week.
Yeah, it makes it a lot more enjoyable when you come away with a couple of good wins.
It was Bribie really one of the strengths of the competition this season, Chook. How did you go about getting one over the Seagulls, especially the week after they'd taken advantage and you probably laid a bit of a blueprint for them and beaten the Dolphins themselves? So a really tough task there.
Yeah, they're both quality teams, and I've said all along that we've got a good team. It's just a matter of we've got to get a little bit of consistency together.
It seems is a bit of a matter of the boys lifting against some of the teams that perhaps they're not expected to beat, and perhaps not doing the due diligence over those teams that are around them on the ladder.
Yeah, you could look at it on that sort of side of it as teams we're below, Bribie and Kawana, and they sort of might have been a little bit underdone for us. But I sort of seen Kawana as they had a pretty well full-strength team, so when you turn out with a full-strength team and you turn them over, there's no real excuse. Bribie Bribey again had a few coast players in. That's pretty well going to be their team for the season. Talking to them afterwards, and we took their scalp. So if you don't turn up to play, you get rolled, and that's what happened to us at Maroochydore after we played Kwana. We just rolled in thinking that we've hit good form and we just need to turn up, but it doesn't happen that way. Everyone's got to turn up to play week in, week out.
I know you probably won't like to single anyone in particular out, but who's really, stood up for you in the last couple of weeks, Chook, that's impressed you as a coach?
Scott Maddox, mate, is a class above anything on the coast when he got his head on, and I keep giving him a bit of an air bashing over, I need you to be up there week in, week out at that level. Scott's kicking game's sensational, and then probably in the forwards, Matt Cornish is doing real well, so which is good. But it's all come on the back of a couple of players come back, Mitch Morrison and Troy Coggins and Chris Boss. They come back and do well, and you're finding young fellas like Chad Norman now are playing the best footy all year and stuff like that. So Blake Mars come out of the 18s, Charlie Bell out of the 18s. They're all starting to get on the back of these guys as well. So it's starting to become a real team effort.
Chook, the equation has looked almost the same throughout the season in terms of where the Snakes are positioned on the ladder, in a real tight tussle there with Maroochydore, for what looks like going to be the last spot in the finals, but definitely both sides capable of challenging those teams above them. Nambour coming up this weekend is, how are you getting the boys up after this big win? Are they looking back at that game against Maroochydore and seeing sort of what they did wrong coming off the big win against Kawana and trying not to repeat these same mistakes against Nambour?
Yeah, we'll speak about it. Like last week after the Maroochydore loss, it was a real ordinary week at training. It wasn't enjoyable. Rain was about, so we didn't get much time on the paddock. Then we turn out and roll Bribey, So it's definitely a mental thing. So it's just a case of the boys have got to turn up this week with their heads screwed on and do as they're asked, and we'll come away with the points. And these games are always going to be tough, and a bit of rain about this weekend by the look of it. So up there, it'll be a tough battle, but we got to take these points, the next few weeks to just get us up that little bit. That extra place might be a good thing for us. So the boys have really got to knuckle down the next 3 weeks.
Now, Chook, just before we let you go, it was just about the tip of the year that you gave us very, very early on. You said keep an eye on the under-18 side for the Snakies. They are real specials, and it's been a tremendous season for the young side. They're sitting on top of the ladder with 9 wins and only 2 losses for the year. What a tremendous thing for the club to have the under-18s performing so well.
Yeah, it's good when the kids play well, and it's nice that you can pull a few of them up into A grade. There'll be young Jake Horsburgh will come up and have a game of A grade this week or next week. So there's a couple of potentially really good kids in there, and for next year, and there's a lot of them that have still got another year in 18. So it's all good. You could see that if they got together and worked hard, that they'll get some good rewards, and we're starting to see it now. They were a bit ordinary at Maroochydore, same as A grade, but overall they're doing well. The Reggies are doing well, and A grade's just probably been the ones that are just sort of letting the club down from being an overall great season. So we want to finish well and have all 3 grades in the finals.
Chook will definitely be cheering for all 3 grades for Caboolture in the grand finals here at SportsFeva. It's always a pleasure to have you on and get your thoughts on the competition. Thanks very much for your time this morning, and absolute best of luck against Nambour this weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chook. Chook Tomlinson, coach of the Caboolture Snakes rugby league team, and They're going well.
They're going very well. A disappointing loss against Maroochydore in the middle of the weeks there, Matty. That was their real chance to push ahead of Maroochydore on the ladder, but you can't discount wins over Kawana and Bribey. They're huge, and
come final time, they're the type of wins.
Exactly.
You know, those psychological victories, knowing, look, we can beat those teams. And I think what happened last year is a few of the teams that couldn't beat Kawana thought, geez, these teams are hard to beat, you know. So, interesting, big psychological victories. How did we go in the tipping last week, Swamp? I haven't looked at the results, mate. How did we go, mate?
Lightning quick, because the full-time siren is looming. You got me. You had tipped Caboolture, so you got me one there.
Oh.
You did. In Bruff, we trust the Kawana Dolphins bouncing back after 2 losses, defeating the Gympie Devils 20-10, so you got me there too. You're 2 up. Maroochydore Swans, keeping touch with Caboolture. Took one over the Nambour Crushers 26-16, so I got one back on you there. And the Noosa Pirates and Calandra Sharks playing out a 24-all draw, so you've got me.
How many? I'm about 5 in front?
No, you're 4 in front now.
Okay.
I thought I had you this weekend, Matty. Jeez.
Never doubt me, Swamp. Okay, quickly, this week, Nambour Crushers, Caboolture Snakes.
Got to go the Snakies.
Snakes, me too. Dolphins, Pirates.
Dolphins, got to go.
You'd think a pirate would beat a dolphin, generally.
They're very
but
smart.
They are. They're very tricky,
Too much
Dolphins.
ale, the Pirates.
I'll go the Dolphins and the Bruff Man. Bribey Island Seagulls and the Gympie Devils.
At Bernie Foley Oval, get over there if you can. Got to go to Sea Eagles.
I go the Seagulls and the Calandra Sharks, the Maroochydore Swans. Maroochydore are specials. It looks like we're all the same.
All the same, no chance to get one.
Go the Sharks if you want.
No, look,
You sure?
the Swans must win to keep
A shark could beat a swan, Swamp.
No.
Go that way, mate. Just try it.
No, I won't.
You sure? We'll put you down for the Sharks.
Put me down for the Swans.
We've got a big following here, Calandra Swamp. Go.
Oh, look,
give them a help.
it's a tough season for the Sharks.
Fair enough. That's all today for Sports Fever. Thank you for our guests, Adam Mogg from the Redcliffe Dolphins, Mike Whiting from AFL.com.au, and Caboolture Snakes coach Chuck Tomlinson. We'll see you again next week. Thank you, Swampy.
Thank you, Matty.